progress is vast and fast within AI, but it's often maybe less impressive than we think. And we live with this tension now of like, it's amazing and fantastic, but it's also making a lot of mistakes. And I think it's because we are measuring often their ability wrong in a simplistic way. AI has changed my creative process, I think, in primarily 2 or 3 ways. One, I use it a lot to critique myself, to explain a problem and see if it holds up, or like try to find new angles by getting feedback. But much more, I think, excitingly, it's incredibly good at teaching me new things. Because what I do with AI is I'm not afraid to lean into something that's an adjacent speciality from where I'm situated right now. I think especially when you work in the industry for a long time, you're sort of pushed into becoming a specialist, and you get to know one problem space that's quite narrow incredibly well. And it can at that point feel like you are getting stuck. Like you're stuck doing that and you're never gonna compete with yourself on anything else. But AI is incredibly good at enabling you or me to lean outside of that and do something that I have taste enough to evaluate, but not the skills enough to execute on by myself and then learn. So for example, to be concrete, I can play a lot more with 3D and WebGL on the web because it's an adjacent specialty to maybe working with regular JavaScript or CSS and animating in that environment. And I combine it with also not my expertise, but like things I've learned working with After Effects and Blender. And then I can, with AI, lean into this adjacent speciality that it wouldn't have leaned into without it.
I think AI does bring a huge potential for actually improving inclusivity. If you think about the hyper-personalization trend and how we can now generate not just the content, but the interfaces on the fly, like what does that unlock? Well, each individual's user's needs can be met. I know sometimes there can be a temptation to think of accessibility or inclusivity as like some checklist thing that you do at the end to make sure, okay, yeah, we can see it this way, whatever. But inclusivity really is for everyone. And I think people are going to realize with the personalization that AI brings that actually I benefit from this too. I guess what I'd say is even though we're all aware of the huge risks around AI for perpetuating systemic biases in training data or, racism and even an overcorrection to some of those fears has also been a challenge. So whilst we have to be super mindful of that and super responsible, like we shouldn't miss the exciting opportunity to actually serve more people and to be more inclusive.
Communication is 80% nonverbal, which means that a lot of being able to communicate with a human being has nothing to do with just typing, which is one of the issues with the ChatGPTs of this world. Communication and AI are highly connected because ultimately what we want to do with AI is build superhumans. There are many projects that I think made us rethink absolutely everything. One of the core things we're doing at the university, which is absolutely fantastic, is being able to understand pets. They design a dog translator, and that's a completely different thing. Being able to understand the bark of a dog, using a small camera, seeing what the dog's doing, eating, having a multimodal AI that combines different modalities in order to understand that dog, breaks every paradigm. This is not the classical design exercise that you have design thinking, let me draw scenarios. No, this is about what can we do with the technology that's going to completely break through something that is difficult for humans to understand. And that's understanding a language that we don't know anything about, which is dogs barking, essentially. And that was one of those projects where I realized, wow, this changes every rule on design. Because we started from the bridging the imagination gap of the technology and trying to apply it. So there's no user testing in regards to like how do you know the dog's actually telling you what you think it's telling, right? It's not about what is the key or core feature. It's about how can I do something with this technology that is going to break through or augment our humanity.
I think the biggest misconception with AI progress at the moment is we're looking at a lot of quantitative tests that we've used for many years to measure ability in humans. And we know it's a faulty praxis because we're trying to quantify skill. And now we're using a lot of these often automated tests to quantify the skills of AI, LLMs, agents. And then they outperform us. And we might draw the conclusion that like they're better than us at this thing. And I think in most cases, that's just not true. We're just failing to really capture the actual difficulty of performing within that field, actually having that expertise. So I think progress is vast and fast within AI, but it's often maybe less impressive than we think. And we live with this tension now of like, it's amazing and fantastic, but it's also making a lot of mistakes. And I think it's because we are measuring often their ability wrong in a simplistic way. And we need to really have a more productive conversation about how good AI is and what it can automate or not, or replace or not. We need to get better at actually quantifying skill. And our inability to do that at the moment is driving, I think, a lot of misconceptions about what AI can do or cannot do.
I don't remember the exact date and time frame when I think the son of Walt Disney was interviewed by someone, and in the interview they asked him, isn't it sad that your father is not here to see the empire that Disney is today? And his answer was epic, and he said, it's because my father dreamt it that you're able to see it. And that's what design is. Design is not about Figma or the tools or the research. Design is about bridging the gap of what a technology, a trend can do and what humans interpret from it. And that ability, it's what the future of UX and AI is the products of the future, the products of a new era.